Hello and welcome to another episode of FinTech Focus TV with me, Toby. Today I am joined once again by two stars of the show, people who have been on it many times before. Anvar, good to see you. Andy, good to see you. FlexTrade and Kepler Cheuvreux, two of the great stories of recently. We've heard lots and lots of news coming out from both parties recently. It caught my attention just during Trade Tech, before Trade Tech, where there's a big announcement about what you guys are doing. I've been fascinated all year about the whole concept of agent to agent. That's where we're going to dive into and find out a little bit more about today. So before we jump into all of that, let's do some intros. Andy.
Sure, my name's Andrew Mahoney. I'm Managing Director of FlexTrade in EMEA.
And I'm Anvar Karimson. I'm the Group Chief Technology Officer for Kepler Cheuvreux.
Fantastic. So, as I say, a lot of noise, some quite exciting stuff that you guys have both been working on. Tell us a little bit about the origin.
Sure. So the genesis of the idea really goes back a few years. So I think it was about 2023, 2024, we did some work with KCX integrating their pre-trade analytics. Essentially, this was a standard API that KCX was providing, and we query that based on a symbol, and then get data back into our plotter, things like predicted volatility, other kind of volume metrics. The unique thing about the integration was it was real time, so no other provider we were working with at the time was doing that. And it allowed us to basically give more content to our clients within the FlexTrade plotter. It was a very standard integration. It was a REST API, nothing too exciting, but it was a big hit with our clients and probably rolled out to about 60-70% of our clients very, very quickly. The genesis of the agent-to-agent communication really came from quite a random conversation me and Anvar were having a couple of weeks before Trade Tech. Where we were talking about agent-to-agent communication, and Anvar revealed some of the plans that KCX had about building a bot, and it kind of dawned on us that we already had done a lot of the hard work, and really what we could do is wrap an AI agent, which we had already built, around the data that we were getting back from KCX through standard API methodologies.
Just sorry to jump in before we come over to you, Anvar. So when you're there and you're doing that, what was the original purpose of that? When you said you'd already built it and everything was in place, what was your vision of where that was going for you?
So really, we work with every broker on the street. We're a completely broker agnostic system, and generally we make sure that we provide the best content from each of the brokers to the FlexTrade front end. We want to be the system of choice for all the brokers when they're recommending systems to their buy-side clients. So we work with people like KCX if they have new offerings, new initiatives, to make sure that they're represented appropriately in the FlexTrade front end. We do this because we want to foster innovation, we want to foster the evolution of the markets, and we want better outcomes for our clients as well. So really the way it was integrated initially was purely you select a row or multiple rows within the FlexTrade plotter, which are orders ready to trade. You hit the KCX analytics button and it goes off and queries KCX for those data points. And then they start streaming in the background, and you can use that for just looking at visual elements. You can use it for charting. You can also use it for automation capabilities, for example, or things like real-time automation as well, where you could say, if the volume prediction from KCX is showing me Y, then maybe I want to do something different with my order than I might have done previously. So it's a very rich data set, data points.
And Anvar, I know you love thinking about this sort of stuff, and I know you love the conversations, and you're constantly looking about how you can integrate new technology into what you guys are doing. So you're having this conversation a couple of weeks before Paris, and tell me a little bit about where it came from your side.
Well, we've been looking at it for a little while, where we to go back to kind of the time frame that Andy was talking about. Our API has been hugely successful with our clients and really provided a lot of value. So for us, we were constantly thinking about where do we go from there? Do we add more data points? Do we create more innovative functions? And obviously, language models started really taking off, and we thought, well, we did some internal experimentation, and we were really pleased with the results. So then the next sort of hop from that is, how can we get this into the hands of our clients? And I think, generally speaking, clients don't want another portal to log into. So for us, it was natural to go back to, day one of the API, which we launched in collaboration with FlexTrade, and just get them on the phone and say, hey, we have this crazy idea, but we might think it could work. And funny enough, you guys were working on that already.
Crazy ideas as well.
Yeah, so it kind of just worked. And I think when it dawned on us collectively that we could actually do it, the next step was, well, TradeTech is in like 2 weeks, you know. And we were very keen on having something real to show people.
Yeah.
You know, having a press release is great, but being able to really demonstrate how it works.
But isn't it amazing how that sort of thing can happen with, you know, with projects that would have taken months and months and months beforehand, even years? This is like 2 weeks, and can we get something real and working? And I think one of the things, you know, since the start of this year, people have been talking about this being the year of the agent and everything, you know, 2025 year of the agent, lots of conversation around that sort of thing happening. But also one of the frustrations at the start of this year is this going to be something which is a hype cycle with any real world applications which are coming through and actually living and breathing it within companies? And now we're starting to get to that sort of phase, which is the exciting part of it, right?
Mm-hmm. I would say on the hype cycle, like it's definitely, there's been firms that have been guilty of jumping on the AI bandwagon.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. Like, it's a new technology. If people will make mistakes, I think it's okay to maybe be a little bit high on the hype edge, because it is a really fascinating new technology. I think the ramifications of AI are huge. Yes, it will get misapplied. Yes, it will get in situations that it shouldn't do. But that's the joy of new technology. It's not to sort of be this Luddite that just doesn't want anything to change. It's like, embrace it. Yes, you'll probably make mistakes, but it's fine.
Yeah.
And yeah, going back to what Anvar was saying about the timelines, it kind of helped the fact that we had built our own agent, Flex AI, before, which is essentially a natural language query engine, like a Copilot that's built into FlexTrade. So you can ask it questions like, how much of my Swiss orders have been filled today? And we've trained it on what the API can do, what the system can do. FlexTrade is a very open system. It's very easy to use programmatically and also from a user perspective. But it's often the case that people want to get to an end result that might take 10 button clicks. So being able to interact with it from a natural language query engine is quite advantageous for a number of clients. And just to your point about productionizing it, this is in production. It's already being used by clients. And really that's where we see a lot of added value from our Flex agent, is just using the system more efficiently. And then where the idea of, okay, if I have a question for another counterparty that I can't answer, such as KCX, then I just forward the question. It's so easy. It's actually the easiest thing we can do. We can start taking those questions and firing them off to the appropriate engines to answer the questions.
When you're talking about that sort of speed of evolution and ideas becoming reality, and we're talking there about failure and trying new things. I had a episode, I think at the Fix conference, actually, funny enough, with a hedge fund there, who were talking about their big advice around their panel. They were on the AI panel, and their big advice that they gave was to just to play around with it, to keep trying it, to try new things, and from that you'll be surprised with some of the solutions that come out with that. And he was very anti-blockchain and very pro AI in terms of what he did, and said, look, this is where you're actually seeing stuff that can move the needle a little bit. With that experimentation and that sort of playing around with it, how do you get to that sort of phase to do it? I mean, obviously there's some ramifications of this. Is it just sort of toying around? I mean, it sounded like exactly what you were talking there was, let's play around with this idea, talk to a couple of people, see what can happen. And then the scale of how quickly that can happen is...
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think internally, what we keep saying to people is that this is probably the worst it's going to be ever.
Yeah.
You don't like the output? All right, let's wait 3 months and see what happens. I think that people overthink how they enter. And if you're a massive enterprise and you're rolling it out to 70,000 people globally, of course you have to think about that.
Yeah.
But I think what I think you should do is start individual pockets, specialized use cases, specialized areas, start trying. And I think, what really was exciting for me in our collaboration was that it wasn't internal, it was external and client facing. To be able to do that, you have to have two companies who are willing to say, well, let's see what we can do together, because at the end of the day, there's no commercial drivers pushing us to collaborate and release that. We kind of did it for the sheer excitement of what's possible. You know, and I think that's really
But
cool.
isn't that interesting how that's sort of evolved a little bit more as well when you've got this sort of tech? It's from I often say this, I think in finance a few years ago everyone wanted to hold on to their toys and not share anything, and now we're getting this opportunity where great things are happening. I mean, Andy, you've been on the show beforehand with other companies talking about how you do that, and I think that's probably one of the great strengths of FlexTrade, isn't it? To talk to people, work out what we can do, collaborate, partner, and work out where things happen. Is that very much part of the DNA of the business that you
100%. The amount of speculative development that we do that doesn't necessarily have client demand behind it is not significant, but it is there. And we have a budget of development that essentially means that we can move the needle, we can make things happen in the industry that other firms struggle to. I think if we waited around for a client to ask for exactly this, we'd probably be waiting another 5-10 years before clients realise that
that's the faster horses thing again.
that this is even possible, or that this would change things. I think the ramifications of this can't be understated. It's like the potential for buy-side and sell-side interaction to be more free-form with less technical overhead is huge. Like if I want to, and both parties can develop things in their own cycle as well. So the moment Anvar creates a new capability of the bot on their side, we can query it. There's no additional work to be done on the FlexTrade side, whereas historically through APIs or other mechanisms, you'd be looking at conformance testing, UAT testing, back and forth, like fixed certification, etc. Now it's just like, right, there's a new question, fire it off, see what the response is.
And what's that look like? What's that mean in reality? What's the potential of where this can go?
I think from our perspective, what we really want to have is secure direct access into many of our systems, at least for data and analytics. We want the buy side to be able to query the type of execution we do for them, give them color on the market conditions, but do that in a secure fashion. So that's something that we are working on a lot now, is to think about, okay, the next steps of this, how do we secure it? How do you make sure that you can only see your data? Because our API is what we consider client public data, so it's not specific to a particular client, but having that sort of data would be the next step, but we need to make sure we have the right safeguards. So that's what we're spending a lot of time thinking about now.
And that security is always going to be one of the challenges which we look at in there, right? And that's something which you guys are focused in on.
100%, and the chain of custody of the data as well, making sure the data doesn't fall into the wrong hands. Sorry, not the right hands. The right hands is the correct way to look at it. But yeah, that's a huge challenge as well, not least within our system as well, wanting to make sure that our AI co-pilot is only able to access the appropriate information for the user that's requesting it, and not go off and find stuff that it shouldn't be finding. But I think to the point of just integration, and as sort of partners like KCX add new capabilities, I foresee a world where the EMS is interacting with multiple bots and multiple different agents and multiple technologies, and essentially the user doesn't need to know what capabilities the broker provides. They just select an order on the set street order blotter and say, what can I know about this? Like what additional content, how much in the dark, how much in the lit? And whether it's through traditional fixed OSUs, API OSUs, or a bot, it will answer the question. And we are abstracting all that complexity of technology away from the end user and just providing a single interface to the client.
And what does that look like? You know, I mean, when you say that's where it sits, what are the practical advantages? What will that mean for people who are utilising that, for the end user?
Less digging around multiple columns, less trying to look at individual capabilities of each broker and trying to figure out how they present this information. To Anvar's point earlier, no one wants to be logging into a second terminal or a second screen to get this data. So what ends up happening is this data just collects dust and sits there. No one actually looks at it. It's just providing the data that's probably already being generated somewhere within the broker systems or somewhere within the counterpart systems, and just providing it up to the user. But I say it like it's a trivial thing. The work is a lot on the KCX side. All we have to do is identify the question is for KCX or any other broker and fire the question off.
Yeah, and to your point, I think one of the first conversations we had around this was that we have a similar view in that we want this to be an open implementation. We don't want proprietary APIs. We want to base it on something that is open so that others can continue to work with us on that, because really the ambition, I think, is to have it become a bit more of a standard that people can rely on and use, and we can expand over time.
That reliability piece is always going to be the thing. Are there still concerns around that side of things, or is this something here where you're saying this is as good as it's going to get around? I mean, we've spoken about this as this is the worst it'll ever be, but on the reliability phase, what phase are we at with that right now? We've gone from experimentation to implementation right now.
So I mean, for us, within FlexTrade, the FlexTrade system using the AI agent, we essentially use it as a natural language translation mechanism. So we ask the AI to translate a human desire into API commands. Then the API commands are presented to the user, and then they can click run, or they can have it auto run. So there's no real generation, there's no real idea generation. It's not creating content. It's literally acting as a translation mechanism. And as I said, we do have clients using this in production in a very strict sandboxed area, so that they know that it can't do anything, like it can't hallucinate. Well, it can hallucinate, but even if it did, it wouldn't be able to do anything with that information. Yeah.
And then if we're looking at this, and I always think on these shows when I'm listening to people talking through what the opportunities are and where the benefits are, it usually comes down to cost reduction, to friction reduction, to increased efficiency, to increased productivity. It feels like this is a little bit of all of those boxes ticked around it. Is there an area there which you're particularly focused in on and excited about for both of your customers on this?
I think what really excites me is that we're spending a lot of time now talking to OpenAI, Anthropic, Snowflake about how to best build technology that works in conjunction with their technologies. And one particular area that I find really fascinating is, have you ever used deep research in any of the sort of chatbot applications?
I haven't.
It's phenomenal. Effectively, what it does is that it goes away and can query hundreds of sources for you, then create a document that spans 10, 15, 20 pages long. I do all my research via that. It's phenomenal. What is coming out now from both OpenAI and Anthropic is the ability to do that with custom tools. And that's where we're really interested. To give you an idea, if you could connect FlexTrade or our agent directly to this, you can ask it for, go off and analyze the last 6 months, 12 months of your data. And it will crunch away for an hour doing so, but the report you get back is phenomenal. And that's really exciting for me.
Yeah, I can see it.
I had it reorganize my personal email box the other day. It's great.
But ChatGPT failed to do my 9-year-old son's homework. I'm not sure why it's that good.
I had my daughter using Snap AI to read a book for her the other day, so she didn't have to do it. Probably shouldn't be saying it on camera. But I think it's just it's an amazing sort of opportunity, isn't it, that we're sat in? And as we say, look, the evolution. You said, right, let's wait for 3 months if you mess something up. The evolution of this at this sort of pace is incredible. Where do you think it goes? What's the real opportunity in the sector?
So, I mean, for us, one of the things we're really excited about is the agent-to-agent communication upstream. So to the OMS and to the PMS and to other systems within the front office chain within the same company. So for years we've had the fairly clear delineation between what's a portfolio management system, what's an order management system, what's an execution management system, with fairly blurred lines. Like some systems are integrated. We typically have integration with third-party OMSs through Fix or through API, but it's relatively rigid and relatively pre-canned. With the advent of agent-to-agent communications, I'm aware that a number of order management systems and portfolio management systems are building their own AI agents. As we connect those, then suddenly if you're a trader sitting in the EMS and you want to know about something that sits in another system, you can just ask the question and it gets forwarded on to that agent. Equally, if you're a portfolio manager sitting in the portfolio management system and you want to know a question about liquidity, that question can get passed down the chain and answered by FlexTrade or indeed by KCX. Obviously, the chain of custody becomes very important there to make sure that questions are being answered appropriately and under the right credentials. But I think that has the potential to really transform front office technology as a whole, because essentially you're then saying you don't really care about the front end, you care about being able to answer the questions. And the next generation of this I see is that you will be able to build your own front end. Essentially you'll be able to say, right, today I want to see my positions, I want to see my Eurodollars, I want to see these rates, I want to see this, all my high touch equities, and it will just build the front end for you through API commands, and it will take components from the PMS, EMS, OMS, various different systems and just build it for you, build that dashboard. And then any question you answer just gets funneled onto the right place.
Which just has massive implications to how successful people can be.
And how, just to go back to, I think you mentioned the walled garden or the closedness of vendors in the past. This really, like, unless you're open, you're dead. There is no question that AI is going to force you to be open, or else you're going to really struggle.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point on it, isn't it? Which actually sort of brings me on to the concept of partnership within this sort of space, and there are obviously good partnerships and bad partnerships that work out in various different things, as we've seen at various
listing the bad partnerships.
We won't go there, but I think people will immediately go to some of the ideas of it all. But what does that, when you're working as closely as this, what I love about the way that you guys have done this is it's been kicking an idea around almost over a coffee or wherever it goes, and we're thinking of something and thinking, right, let's go to those guys because we know they're going to be open to it. How do you make yourself a great partner to each other? What do you look for in that sort of thing? Because I know you've got various different people you're working with, and you're constantly kicking the tires, aren't you?
I think it's that kind of natural curiosity for and excitement for technology, for changing the industry, for innovation, for all of that. I think that's the key. The rest of it you can kind of work out. It's mechanical, but if you don't have that natural excitement for change, then you're going to get stuck quite early on.
And the ability to make change. Like, I think if you can be the most creative person in the world stuck in a company that doesn't have the technology to sort of follow your ideas, I'd say you probably won't last very long in those companies. But the beautiful thing about FlexTrade is it's an extremely comprehensive, extremely flexible system. The clue's in the name. So being able to innovate in this way is relatively small overhead for us. So we actively embrace third parties like Kepler and others that we've worked with over the past to say, if you have any ideas, we'd be more than happy to workshop them. There's no, as you say, there's no commercial agreement between us. It's not in a situation where we're waiting for clients. We can say, do you know what, we'll do this, we'll announce it, we'll get some traction, see what it is what the reaction is for clients. And to be frank, like in the past, some haven't been super successful, but that's fine. Some have absolutely taken off, like KCX API integration was huge.
When you're talking about 70% of your clients.
I was actually a little bit shocked. I was like, wow, this is a gap that I didn't even, if I'd known this, I would have done it 6 months ago. And it's really like, it's just the willingness to take risks and being able to, openness is key, and having the right tech stack, I think, is important too.
I'll move on to the individual companies, and I know there's, as we say, there's a lot happening with both businesses. So if we look forward to, we're lurching towards the second half of the year already as we're filming this. Tell us what's exciting over at Kepler over the rest of this year.
Well, so many things. We're building our new electronic trading platform, KCX Omni. Hugely exciting. We've just gone live with KCX Spark, our new smart order router. So we're putting a lot of bits in the execution space into place this year. On the research side, we're building a brand new research management platform. It's looking tremendous, really. Our partnership with Snowflake is continuing. We were one of the fastest clients they've ever had to go from POC stage to production. So we're running proper production workloads on Snowflake.
Good partner again, right?
Good partner, yeah. We're growing. There's a lot of stuff coming out there. But really, a lot of my time is spent looking on the AI side of it. How do we empower people? How do we make them more efficient? How do we bring the right data to the right people at the right time? How do we make our developers better, faster? How do we augment them? How do we create more resilient, robust systems using AI? So I think it's a mix of everything, really.
Sounds exciting. And look, you guys are never short of releases and new things and innovation in your world as well. What's the next? The rest of the year got set for FlexTrade?
Yeah, so a lot's going on, as you might imagine. We've got a buy side and a sell side business. We provide order and execution management systems for both across asset classes. Both are very busy, both are being staffed up, and we're hiring aggressively in all areas. But really, from a business perspective, the biggest trend we're seeing is just the multi-asset consolidation, like bringing all the asset classes into one place. And the unique thing FlexTrade has is we have clients in individual asset classes as well as multi-asset. So you're not foregoing any functionality in FX, for example, in order to achieve your dream of a multi-asset desk. The AI aspect is huge. Like the number of times we've demoed our Copilot and we've had questions come from the prospect audience that we had never even thought of. I mean, at the Innovation Day at TradeTech a few weeks ago, we did it as part of the Innovation Day, basically opened the AI and said, what questions would you like to ask it? And there were a number of situations saying, like, what's the worst trade that I've done in the last 6 months within this certain bucket? And yes, you could build them through a Tableau report or a Power BI report. But then the next question, you'd have to build another report. And there it's like, if you can just ask the question, it's huge. And I think the ramifications for that in fixed income are still yet to be unfurled a little bit. I think the unstructured nature of the fixed income business and the fact you've got lots of AX data, runs data, inventory data, all potentially in sort of slightly messy formats. If we can put that in the database that is able to be interrogated by the chat bot, it suddenly opens a door to being able to just ask really simple questions like, which 5 dealers should I put in comp for this bond? And it goes off, squirrels away at the data, gives you back an assessment of why it's decided certain things, and then you're able to put them in comp. That is huge and revolutionary as well.
It's just as you're talking to that, I'm thinking that I've done 25 years in the financial technology space before.
That's the best thing you've ever heard.
Let's just quote that. but it's over that sort of period, there's been lots of different things that have evolved at pace. But I don't think when you're both talking about that sort of stuff, I think we're sort of like taking it for granted just about how quick this is all happening, and just the scale of opportunity within it. That we've seen various different things happen at various different cycles over that sort of stage. I think it's a very different world than it was, 10 years ago in this space. And whether it's called evolution or innovation, as we've spoken about before, what's for certain is that things are moving within that with greater opportunity, and it's so important that it's happening at the moment, because there has never been more time needed for greater efficiency, more productivity, with costs continuing to spiral pressure on businesses. The only way you can really manage that to maintain those margins is to increase productivity and efficiency. So I think it's a really, really interesting piece, and if we're looking at that and saying, look, these are some of the things that people should be focusing on at the moment, people should be thinking about to gain those advantages, and this is a massive unfair question just to sort of throw at you like this. But if we are thinking about the rest of this year, and what if you were to give one bit of advice to people to be saying, think about this right now to have the biggest impact with all the technological advance we're seeing right now, what would your bit of advice be?
I think it's a really great question. I think it's hard to boil down to one single point. I think to your point, things are changing much faster than we're used to. And I think the best thing you can do is just assume that you won't know, because the change, the pace of change and sort of the algorithmic advances we're seeing, what you consider to be safe today is going to change tomorrow. So what you really have to focus on is creating that experimentation culture, creating a setup for where you can try things and get real life feedback. That's really the only way forward, I think.
Yeah, I would say the evolution is only going to get faster. If you're not already on top of it, you really need to get there. But it's very easy for us to say that. We've got robust data stacks, we've got robust frameworks in place. We've done the hard work over the last 20 odd years to allow us to layer on top AI. Putting AI on top of dross will just lead to terrible answers and terrible situations, and probably torpedo a company out of existence quite quickly. So the rate of change is not going to get any slower, it's going to get faster, if anything. And I think I would never understate the impact of consumer technology on financial services. I think one of the things I've been waiting for years is some kind of device that will be able to interact with the computer with better than the keyboard and mouse. There are plenty of firms working on that. Neuralink, Elon Musk's folly. But I mean, that potential is huge. Like suddenly you've got a situation where you don't even have to type. Because at the moment what we've done is reduce the barrier for, I don't need to use a mouse, I don't need to navigate menus, I don't need to type a bunch of commands, I can just ask the question. You could then say the next leap is, okay, I can talk to the computer, but to be honest, on a trading floor, if you start talking to your computer, you probably get chucked off quite quickly. But then it's like, okay, how do you further reduce the barrier for man and machine? How do you truly make them work together? And then suddenly you're like, okay, if I can remove this 80s construct of having to have a QWERTY keyboard or whatever keyboard you're using, suddenly that's mind-blowing. And that's where being on the forefront of technology, making sure that you're ahead of the curve on everything you possibly can be, it's not an optional part of your business. You have to be there, because suddenly overnight you could be out of business.
Yeah, one of the reasons I love doing this show is just you end up getting excited by what people are talking about and the passion that you can see from it. And actually, one of the things that's shone out between both of you speaking is just the excitement about the potential of what we're doing here. So it's been an absolute pleasure. Anvar, thanks for coming in. Andy,
very much.
A pleasure as always. And in 3D, this is the first time I should have said it at the start. Beforehand, we've been doing this on camera. We've kept you behind screens before, but this is actually lovely to have you in the
Sounds
studio.
like I'm a caged animal. This is COVID, just to be clear.
Yeah, there you go. Thanks for clarifying. Lovely to have you both on. Best of luck with it all. I loved reading about it, and I thought it would make a great episode. I wasn't disappointed. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks.
And thank you all for watching. We'll see you soon on the next episode of FinTech Focus TV. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.